Hi and welcome back. Today we'll be making a very nourishing and creamy winter dish called mushroom orzotto or barley risotto. Orzo is the Italian word for barley. Not only is risotto a very Mediterranean dish, barley is a very Mediterranean grain that goes back to ancient Greece when the Olympian athletes used to eat it because they thought it gave them strength. Roman gladiators were also fed barley before every fight. Barley is incredibly healthy. First of all, it contains selenium, which is an anti-cancer mineral. Secondly, it's very rich in a variety of fibres, soluble and insoluble, which nourish the healthy gut bacteria and also reduce the risk of colon cancer and breast cancer, and furthermore lower your cholesterol. It is also rich in lignans, which is a phytoestrogenic compound that is thought to protect us from hormone-related cancers. And finally, it has a very low glycemic index rating of 22, which is much lower than rice, which is in the 60s. Some sorts of rice are even in the 70s. What this means is that when you eat barley, it digests very slowly and converts very slowly into blood sugar. And that means you're not going to get these sharp spikes in blood sugar, which are then followed by a release of insulin. And as those of you who've watched previous videos know, blood sugar and insulin both nourish cancer cells and promote the spread of cancer cells. So any foods we eat, any carbohydrate-rich foods that have a low glycemic index rating are going to be very good for us. Here are the ingredients we need. First of all, about a cup of dry hulled barley that you've soaked for at least 12 hours. Do buy hulled barley rather than pearl barley because hulled barley is the least refined of all the different types of barley. It therefore has a much lower glycemic index and also contains a lot more nutrients. Then we have 3½ cups of chicken stock, just over a pound of mushrooms, chopped, coarsely chopped because they shrink a lot when you cook them. I'm using a variety of different mushrooms, button mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms and oyster mushrooms. This is what shiitake mushrooms and oyster mushrooms look like when they're whole. Each mushroom contains different compounds, that's why they all taste different. So I love to use a variety of mushrooms, first of all because you get a much more complex mix of flavours, and also you get a lot more of the healthy nutrients in these mushrooms. Especially shiitake and oyster mushrooms contain compounds that strengthen the immune system and are therefore often used in Japan to accompany chemotherapy treatments to strengthen patients' immune systems. We also have a finely chopped onion, some more soaked mushrooms, porcini mushrooms, 4 finely chopped cloves of garlic, a tablespoon of butter, 2 tablespoons of parsley, a sprig of thyme if you haven't got fresh thyme. It's about ½ teaspoon of dried thyme, some parmesan and olive oil. So let's start by cooking the mushrooms. First, I put about 3 tablespoons of olive oil in a pan preheated to a moderate temperature, and I put in the chopped garlic. Don't cook this too long or it'll become bitter. And now, quickly add all the mushrooms. Button mushrooms. Actually, no, I'll put the shiitake in next. The oyster mushrooms are quite fragile, so we'll put those in at the end. Right. And also the rehydrated mushrooms, I've drained the water and I've chopped them coarsely because they were quite large. We put those in as well. Cook this a minute or two and then add the oyster mushrooms. After about 2 minutes, when the button mushrooms and shiitake mushrooms have started to shrink, you add the oyster mushrooms. You strip a few of these thyme leaves off. Thyme goes beautifully with mushrooms. I put it in all my mushroom recipes. And a few twists of freshly ground pepper. And then you cook this on a fairly low heat for another 8 minutes roughly until it's all nice and soft and some of the excess moisture has evaporated. Now after about 10 minutes of cooking, the mushrooms should have shrunk down to about 1/3 of their original volume and look like this. So they're soft, but they're not soggy. This actually makes a fantastic filling for omelettes as well as a delicious topping for toast or for pizza or even scattered over a salad. You just need to cool it down a little bit more so that the salad doesn't wilt under the heat of the mushrooms. So here you've got an absolutely amazingly aromatic mixture of mushrooms. I wish you could smell it. The shiitake mushrooms have a sort of buttery, creamy, woodsy flavour. The porcini are quite oomphy. They've got a very strong meat flavour. And actually that's what's often called umami. It's a sort of meat-like taste that, especially in vegetarian dishes like this one, really gives it a lot of depth of flavour. The oyster mushrooms are much milder, but they give it a lovely creaminess as well. So now let's move on to the grains. So let's put another glug of olive oil in here, about 2 tablespoons worth, and add the chopped onion and cook for about 4 or 5 minutes until they're translucent. When your onions are cooked, just add the soaked barley, stir it for about a minute. Get it nicely covered with olive oil, well combined with the onions. Then to warm it up, we'll speed things up a little. And then you start adding the chicken stock, but don't add it all at once. Just like with a classic risotto, just add about the equivalent of a ladle full. And then stir and cook until it's absorbed. And once it's absorbed, you add the next ladle. It should take about 15 to 20 minutes of ladling and stirring on medium temperature. So 20 minutes later, the barley grains have more or less doubled in volume, and it's turned into a lovely creamy sort of texture. They're still a little bit al dente, but the great thing about barley is you actually can't overcook it, unlike rice, which is very easy to overcook or undercook. Barley keeps a sort of an elastic chewiness, which is lovely. So once you reach that stage, you add the mushrooms that you cooked earlier. There. And 2 to 3 tablespoons of dry white wine that I forgot to mention earlier. And stir it all carefully. A little bit of salt and some more pepper. If you're using salted stock, for instance if you're using a vegetable stock cube, then go easy on the salting. I was using unsalted stock, so I'm adding a little bit more now. Now we add the butter and a squirt of lemon, just to wake up the flavours a little. Half a lemon, just sort of coarsely squirted over. And then depending on how dry or moist you want it, you can add a little bit more wine or water, or in my case I'm adding a little bit more of that mushroom soaking water when we soak the rehydrated mushrooms, because that will deepen the mushroom flavour. I like the risotto to be quite moist. Let this bubble away again for a few seconds, and then add the parsley. Again, combine it so that it's evenly mixed. Now I'll just grate a little bit of parmesan over the risotto. If you're allergic to cow's milk, pecorino, which is made with ewe's milk, tastes almost identical. But generally most people tolerate parmesan very well because it's very low in lactose. Put as little or as much as you like on there. Parmesan is another great source of umami, so it tends to really deepen the flavours of this dish. And there we go. You can eat this on its own, or perhaps with a side serving of spinach or a mixed salad. And if you want to up the protein content, you can add a few pieces of cubed chicken breast. This recipe is out of my book, Zest for Life, The Mediterranean Anti-Cancer Diet. If you want to find out more about the book, go to www.zestforlifediet.com, and among others you can contact me by clicking the author tab and sending me an email with suggestions, feedbacks, comments, ideas for future videos. I look forward to hearing from you.